This is the Lepak Area Public Library's Lunch and Learn.
Good afternoon. My name is Rawley Smith, and I am your tour guide for our trip to Israel, which was in June of 2017. Just to give you an idea of the size of Israel, and I'll pass this around, the country of Israel fits right in Florida very easily. It's very small. Most people don't realize that. But I'll pass this around. It fits in Florida very nicely. Okay, what we did was we traveled with an agency called Colette, which I had never heard of before, but they're a very big travel agency. And they picked us up, you can believe this, at Faith Community Church, drove us all the way to Milwaukee. We got on a plane in Milwaukee, and we went to Newark, New Jersey, and then flew from Newark, New Jersey, over to Tel Aviv. And that is what you see on the blue there, and I'll try to... The blue is the route that we took. You can see how we came in by air into Tel Aviv, and then we proceeded a little area right here, I'll explain a little bit later, went up the coast of Israel, all the way up, all the way around. You've got Lebanon on this side, you've got the Mediterranean Sea here, you have Syria here, and you have the Golan Heights here, and then this whole area here is Jordan all the way down, and then Egypt has this other area down here. What I want to do, can we dim the lights a little bit? Thank you. Well, what's interesting, this picture was taken in Tel Aviv. All of the road signs are in 3 different languages. They're in Arabic, they're in Israeli, and they're also in English. So it's pretty hard to get lost, really. They're all there. This is a picture of Tel Aviv taken from our bus. You can see these high-rise buildings here. The population of Tel Aviv is about 1 million. It's the largest city in Israel. The state of Israel, or the country of Israel, is about 263 miles from north to south. It's about 71 miles wide at the widest point, and about 9 miles wide at the other lower area down there, which you can see somewhere here. Which you can see right down there. There's the bottom part of Israel. This is a picture looking out of our hotel room in Tel Aviv, and here you see the mosque right here. So this area is pretty well integrated, and that's the Mediterranean Sea out there in that picture there. This is the 2 of us at night in Tel Aviv. This is a picture of the Jaffa Church. Now, Jaffa is located just slightly south of Tel Aviv, right there. This is a lot of this stuff was reconstructed, and this church was restored. This is Caesarea. Caesarea is located way up here, right about there. And this was in 22 BC. Herod the Great built all of these castles all over the place. And this is the ruins of one of the castles, looking out on the Mediterranean Sea again. Now here's a picture. This was the restored Roman theater, which I believe seated about 1,400 people, and I was pointing to 2 of the original blocks that were from the original theater around 22 BC. Here they have the Roman toilet with running water. They had aqueducts, and they had sewer systems. So they were really quite a long ways ahead in those days of what they had. Now, this is interesting. This is a swimming pool. Actually, it's a makeup of the way they had it set up. And they would have a furnace, which was off to the left here, blowing hot air underneath all of this area here. And those tubes that you see there were hollow, and they would be heated. and they'd come along with water, and they'd pour water in there, and they'd get steam, and everybody would, end up setting around the edges here, and they'd have steam baths. So they were quite advanced compared to what we think of it in a lot of cases. This is a replica of one of the jugs that when Jesus acted in Cana, which Cana is located, located right up in here. When Jesus turned water into wine, this is a replica of what the jugs this is actually a jug from that period. And to give you an idea about what it is. This is the Church of the Beatitudes, where the Sermon on the Mount was. It's a very beautiful church. You can kind of see down here, along this pathway here, they show all of the Beatitudes. And there's one of them right there. And they're showing all the way along that pathway up to the top. It was very interesting. When we got to the top there, you know, a lot of background noise, people talking and everything. All of a sudden, everybody didn't say anything. And it was very quiet. And it was almost like you could feel a presence. I mean, it's really weird. It was just very quiet. And it was really something to see. Now, here's an olive press. If you owned a forest of olive trees, which, by the way, can be a couple thousand years old, they last for a long, long time, and you were able to harvest the olives and put them in a thing like this, and they would hook this up to a donkey, and the donkey would go around and crush the olives and get them to mush down pretty well. Unfortunately, when we first started this trip, my camera died, so I did not have the ability to take a lot of pictures on one take, so I have to kind of talk about it a little bit. But what they would do is they would get the crushed olive mess out of here, and then they'd go to another area where they had a great big stone, and they would put that mesh down below, and they'd drop that stone and squish it, and then they would get the olive oil out of that. That's how they did it. Now, olive oil was very highly valued in that era. Olive oil then was worth at least 4 times what wine was. And it was very interesting to me to understand that. If you owned an olive oil orchard, you had a lot of power politically. It was very interesting to see that. Whoa, this is the Sea of Galilee, which is right here. That's where the Sea of Galilee is located. And this is a replica of a boat that was about 2,000 years old, the kind of actual boats that they had in that day. This is it's a similar boat. We took a trip out. We went about halfway out of the Sea of Galilee. It was about 95 degrees. It was hot, but it was fairly dry. And I was way up in the front of the boat, and I was thinking to myself, geez, I wonder what it'd be like if I'd been here 2,000 years ago to see that. It's a very pretty area there, and you can see from here where we went out to that area. This is an 800-year-old church on the Sea of Galilee, and they were celebrating the 800th anniversary of that church. This is interesting. That's actually Syria, way over there. And we're right here, in this area right here. We weren't actually right next door to it, but we were pretty close to it. And I could hear booms. And I was wondering, I thought maybe that was sonic booms, but I believe it was actually artillery that you would hear. Couldn't see anything. One thing about this, they see the haze here? This haze is prevalent through this whole area of Israel, all the way down into the desert area. It's not smog, but it's just a summer haze that they have there. Now here's a baptism in the Jordan River. The Jordan River runs from the Sea of Galilee all the way down to the Dead Sea. When we were there, they were having a drought, and the actual river dried up before it even got to the Dead Sea. That's how much they needed rain there. This is a typical location where they have where people get baptized. And I looked at that water and I said, I don't think so. But a lot of people did go down there and they did get baptized there. This is at Qumran, and the thing about Qumran that is so important is this is, which is right. What happened? There we go. What happened was Qumran is located right about in there. This is where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, was in this area. And this is some of the ruins of one of the places that Herod had built, Herod the Great had built, that's still there. Now this is interesting. You read what that says. This road leaves the Area A under the Palestinian Authority. The entrance for Israeli citizens is forbidden, dangerous to your lives, and is against the Israeli law. And this is a checkpoint. Now when we were there, we were okay. We were able to go through the checkpoint and go into Area A, which, by the way, is up here in this area here. Area A and B are here, and then C is down here. I don't know, you can't hardly see the yellow on here, but there was a yellow area on here. This is the West Bank here, and this is more of the West Bank here. This is an area in 1948 war that they had, where this is what the Palestinians were allocated to get this area there. And we saw these signs all over the place. Israel has or the Israelis have a different license plate than the Palestinians do, and you can tell the difference. Now here's Betty floating in the Dead Sea on her 77th birthday. And you float. I mean, the salt is incredible, and you can't really drown that way. You just can lay out there in the sea. And so she was reading something there. This is a picture here of a mosaic tile, very old, I think over 5,000 years old, but what's interesting about it is it almost looks like a swastika. And of course that connotation today is totally different than what it represented at that time. And this is chariot races at Metaprima, which is right in this area here. And it just shows the 7-lap race and what happened in that time. Again, this is in the era back about 22 BC. Now this is interesting. This is Megiddo, which is, sorry, there we go. This is Megiddo here. And they had many, many wars in this area here for thousands of years, to the point where it's in the northwest bank, actually, to the point where they thought that if there ever was such a thing as end times, this is where it was going to be. And so this is the area that they prophesied that that's where it's going to be. Now we're at Masada. You may have heard of Masada, you may not have heard of Masada. But Masada was a large mountain range, basically. And to go back in time to about 66 BC, I'm sorry, 66 AD, there was a tribe of Israelites called Zealots. And the Zealots captured from, and this is after Herod the Great had died, and he built, which I'll show you later on, he built these castles up on top of this Masada. And after he died, they kind of went into disrepair, and the Israelis, the Zealots, invaded and they took over at Masada. Now Masada is about 900 feet high. It is 190 feet above sea level. Now the Dead Sea, the Dead Sea is about 1,300 feet below sea level. It's the lowest place in the world, actually. Now, this is an area here that shows how barren it is. This was from the top of Masada. It was about 100 degrees and it was very hot up there. But again, it's so dry, the humidity is very low, so it didn't feel as bad as it could have felt, I guess. So the Zealots held Masada until 72 AD. And after the Romans pushed the Israelites in Jerusalem, they decided to come after the remaining Jews that were up on top of Masada. There was about 1,000. So they ended up, there's a cable car showing going up there. You can hike up there if you want to. We prefer the cable car. Now you can see this little area right here. This was an encampment from about the time, about 72 AD, that the Romans made 8 of these surrounding Masada. And they had around 9,000 to 10,000 soldiers in that area there, with the intent purpose of building a ramp so they could get up to the top of Masada and they could have a siege up there. Well, it took them about 6 to 7 months to get the ramp up to the point where they could put a kind of like a lookout post up at the top where they could have a battering ram, and they used the battering ram to breach the walls around what the Israelis had done, so they overrun them and they overcame them. But before they did that, the Zealots decided that they were not going to be taken as prisoners and used as slaves, which they used to be. So they made this decision that each family was responsible for the death of all of their people. And they all died, except for, I guess, a couple of them. So all of them committed suicide. And that, unfortunately, that's what death is talk about. Now, this is a picture of one of the castles that Herod the Great built. And it was built a model of it, and it was built way out on the edge here. He did some tremendous work as far as building castles was concerned. This is an actual sistrum from that time, that when it did rain, which is very infrequent, they'd collect the rainwater. And that's what helped the Israelis stay as long as they did, was they did have water up there. Well, the Romans eventually starved them out, so they didn't have any food. There's a picture of one of the camps. This is taken from the top, and it's amazing it's still there after all these years, but it was 2,000 years old, and they had 8 of these, and they surrounded Masada before the siege. This is a picture I just happened to take of an Israeli tank that was transported. This is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and unfortunately we were there during Ramadan. And when you're there during Ramadan and you're not an Arab, you cannot go into the Temple Mount. So we were unable to go in. However, this is a picture of some of the mosaics below the Temple Mount, which was an amazing thing to see. Here is a place they've meant, you know, these things are all assumed. They don't absolutely, it's not cast in concrete. This actually happened at that area. But this is where Pilate presented Jesus to the people on the Via del Rosa, which is the way of the cross. And the way of the cross is 15 stations, and it's uphill, and this is where Jesus went when he was crucified. There's a picture of a beggar woman. And here is the Armenian church. This is station number 3. And station number 3 indicates the first time that Christ fell carrying the cross. And that's what this shows here. Of the 15 stations, 5 of them are at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And the remaining ones are right. And you can go up, it's a paved path, it's pretty steep, and it was jammed with people. There were just an incredible number of people there. Now this is the west wall, and I've got a better picture here. You can see all these little umbrellas here. Well, what's interesting about this is that the Hasidic Jews, who kind of run this whole operation here, go up and they have these little portable stools that they can sit on, and they prepare their prayer requests or whatever it is they're doing, and then they put them in the wall, and then they throw them, kiss the wall, or whatever they do. When I was there, I had heard that the bottom 2 blocks of the wall were from the Second Temple. So when I walked up to the wall, I looked down, and unfortunately it was all plastered, so I couldn't really tell about it. But what's interesting is that this whole area here is reserved for men. The women only get a little bit of an area over here. And when we were there, they were trying to pass a new rule that they would give the women more access to the wall. Well, it failed. It didn't get it. So, and another thing about that deal is that you're a Hasidic Jew, and they dress up in these outfits with these high hats and everything, with the white and the black, and you're done at the wall, and you go away from the wall. You cannot turn your back on the wall. You got to back up, go back out to a certain point, and then you can turn around. I thought that was kind of interesting. Here's a picture of the Israeli police guarding the West Wing. You see they're all over everywhere you look. They're cops, literally. Soldiers and also police. And here's a picture of one of the markets near the Western Wall. This is interesting. This is the top of the wall. And I went up with another couple. Betty didn't go, but I went up with another couple, and we walked. Now you can see all these stones that are in here. You have to be very careful when you walk up here. There's a railing here, but you really have to be careful. We walked down the wall to what they call a Damascus gate. And we got off down there, and we got on a rapid transit, and we went way out to the end of the line where the Holocaust Museum is. Now, if you want to see something that is really impressive, and you ever get an opportunity to go out there, you really need to visit that place. They have original rail cars of where they transported the people to be gassed. They have all different kinds of things out there. One of the things that really impressed me was in the floor, near the main entrance, and it's free, by the way, is an area about 20 by 40 feet of glass. And you can walk on that glass. And if you look down, what do you think was underneath that glass? Shoes. Thousands and thousands of shoes. And they have another area there where they show gold and silver and jewelry that was confiscated by the Germans. And then they have next to it, they have pictures of the original owners of it, who of course died. It's very impressive. There are a lot of people there that were shedding tears. It's a very emotional thing to see. Here is the tomb, they think, where Jesus was laid. This is in Jerusalem. Now this is supposedly where he actually was laid. And you go down and you go into this and you see this area here. This is a similar stone to the ones used on the tomb when it was opened up. Again, this is just similar. He's not here, for he has risen. And that was the end of that part. Well, what I'd like to do at this time is mention from a newspaper article that I got that is dated July 23rd of 2017, which is about maybe 2 weeks after we left. And it says that a deadly attack by Israeli Arab gunmen at the shrine 1 week ago left 2 Israeli policemen dead. About 50,000 Muslims worshippers typically descend on the Old City for prayers every Friday. Now this is not at the Wailing Wall. And what happened was, they decided after this happened that they would install metal detectors so that in order to get in, you had to have a metal detector. Well, the Palestinians revolted about that. Tremendously, they revolted. And they had a lot of problems. People were killed, and finally they got to the point where they decided that they would take it out. Another thing is, and I have to show it over here, here is, I can't even see, there's the not West Bank, the Gaza Strip. It's right in there. And believe it or not, there are 2 million Arabs in the Gaza Strip. And it's controlled by the Israelis. They have big iron fences all the way around it. Of course, the sea is on the one side here. And they're having lots of problems, and you can even read about it. This is April 18th, flare-up driven by deep misery at the Strip. And these things are continuing. People ask us, were you threatened when you went to Israel? I never did feel threatened. Maybe we were fortunate and we didn't run into any problems. But will I go again? Yeah, I sure would, because there's a lot more there I'd like to see. So thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to introduce my better half, Bettie.
Okay. Well, my talk consists of 2 parts. One part is things that I will never forget on the trip. And I think if you've ever traveled, you have things that you totally remember from your trip that you will never forget. And the second part is I'm talking a little bit about travel safety. Okay, we'll start out with the Sea of Galilee. Now some of this will be things that Rawley's already said, but I will give you some of my best memories. The Sea of Galilee. As you saw in the picture, the sea is down and there's big high banks on it. Okay, that, the way it's constructed or whatever, the storms can come up, violent, high waves can come up. So you can maybe remember from your Sunday school class about the troubles that the disciples had when they were on the sea. And it's also a huge source to Israel. You saw how arid it is. So it just runs from north to south down the country. So that's one thing. In biblical times, it was an abundance for catching fish. They caught them with nets. Okay, we got on the boat and we had lunch. It was a beautiful, warm day, and my senses were just all in tune with what was happening. The breeze was blowing. It wasn't hot. The breeze was blowing, and in the distance we had young girls on our tour that were singing a cappella. We had 4 pastors. They were reading from the Bible. I looked over at the banks of the Sea of Galilee, and I could just imagine Jesus feeding the thousands of people with the loaves and the fishes. I could think of the Bible verse where Peter walked on water. I could remember the Bible verse where the disciples were having a real hard time fishing that day, and he said, just put your nets on the other side. And they got so many fish they didn't know what to do with them. So those are some of the things that I took away from them. I came off and I was at just such peace that here I was on this beautiful day witnessing what I had seen. The next one I'm going to talk about is the Dead Sea. When I was going to go on this trip, I always kind of try to read up, study up, look for books, and I saw in our itinerary, June 11th, we'll be at the Dead Sea. Whoa, that's my birthday. So I got a little message from someone who had been there. He said this was his feet, and he went like this. And so I had my script ready. I got special shoes to go down there. I got Rawley to take the camera, to take my picture. He did a wonderful job of that. And so getting up from that position, if you're ever there, you have to really fight you have to fight it. You have to fight gravity to stand up. You're covered with salt. Okay, I saw these 4 girls in our trip, women actually. They were bobbing up and down, and I went over to them and I said, I have a cameraman on the shore. Let's do a ballet leg. And we did. And I wish that were in the slides, but we did a ballet leg there. So it was just something that I will never forget, doing that. Just fun. Masada, you heard about that. I won't go into talking about that because Rawley did. But one thing that impressed me so much was those Romans, when they first built this, they dug a cistern to collect the water up there. Now, if they hadn't done that, they wouldn't have lived very long because it would be a huge deluge of water and the cistern would fill up. Now, there wasn't just one, there were about 3 that I saw, huge cisterns that were collecting the water. And So that impressed me. The other thing was those Romans were so careful with, you know, how they lived, how they did the pleasures of life, Harold, and the swimming pools and the flushing of the toilets. We saw that also in Ephesus when we were there. You know, they would just sit down in the open air and you know, use the toilet. So, I don't know, it just was so, it's very interesting. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about a little thing on, I got freed one day, freed from anybody. And Rawley walked on the wall and went to the Holocaust Museum. I said I want to just visit some of the shops. So I went down, walking down this narrow street. There weren't that many people around. So I spied a t-shirt shop, walked in there, took this t-shirt, came out of there, walked along again, walking. I spotted a shop, a souvenir shop, loaded with beads. Okay, it had, in the back, I walked in, strands of beads, turquoise, cornelian, you name it, just all sorts of beads. Hey, I'm a beader, by the way. And so I had about an hour and a half, and we were going to meet. So I was collecting my pile of beads. Now, what I learned to do in Florida when we went sailing, garage sailing, I bundled. Okay, so I bundled, and the storekeeper lady, would you like some coffee? Oh yes, I'll have some coffee. And he would wait on people to come back. How are you doing? I'm doing fine. Lady, whatever you need, just let me know. And finally, after about maybe 45 minutes, I said, okay, I'm through. And I had my bundle of beads. I sat down, and then he gave me some water. Okay, how much is this? So he went, okay, $600. I went, $600? That's way, I can't afford that. Okay, let's work out a deal, okay? I'll take this and I'll take that, and you take this and I'll take that. And my favorite line he gave me, oh gosh, was, "Lady, you're killing me." Oh man, so I walked out with my bag of beads. I was so happy. My timing was good. Everything was just so perfect. And I walked along. Now I had to find a bathroom. And so I'm walking along. I see this high-end hotel. So I go in, use the bathroom like I had been living there for days, and came back out and started to talk to these women who were standing there and, sitting there having coffee or something, and they turned out to be archaeologists, and they were just so interesting to talk to. And I'm there, and all of a sudden, here's my husband coming along from the Holocaust Museum. How was your trip? Oh, wonderful. How was yours? Oh, wonderful. I have to find a bathroom. All right, right in there, there's this high-end, just walk right into the men's room like you've been there for a long time and anyway, we met and went back to the hotel. But that's my story on the beads. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to talk about is travel tips. Now I have to tell you, we've been traveling for about 35 years, and we've done everything that you shouldn't do. One day we were in Costa Rica, and it was a Sunday, and there were a lot of people. We went to this square. Lots of people all around. We're walking along. My husband has his camera, and he's got his wallet right here. Okay, so we're walking along, and all of a sudden these two little men came up, and they got me out of the way. They were reaching for his camera and his wallet, and he said, "Hey, hey," and they ran away. And I thought, yeah, okay, a camera like that, maybe it's not a good idea to have it in a crowd. And your wallet, you shouldn't have a bulky wallet, because of course they know your money's in there. So what I suggest is carrying something around your neck inside your outfit, or a lot of people have it strapped around inside their clothes so nobody can see. That's one of my tips. Okay. So don't look around like you're lost. And okay, I've asked people to give me travel tips, and one of the ladies that I had lunch with, she's always at these things. She's not here right now, but anyway, she went to Israel about 30 or 40 years ago, a long time ago. Well, she and her girlfriend were looking for the Via Dolorosa. Where is it? They looked lost. A man came up, "Can I help you, ladies?" "Yes, we're looking for the Via Dolorosa. Follow me." So they start climbing step, step, step. All of a sudden, they find themselves on the top of the wall of Jerusalem. And they said to him, "This isn't the Via Dolorosa." "No, it's not," he said. "And you owe me $10 each and a kiss." Well, they start screaming, and the police come and haul them away. So don't act too lost. Act like you've got a plan. And also go with other people. Now, see, I didn't go down that alley with anybody. I just wanted to be by myself. So you know, I made a lot of mistakes. Drink a lot of bottled water. Wear comfortable shoes. Look down when you're walking. Watch the time. Don't miss the bus. There's a story about that too. Oh, tell your kids where you're going to be every day, just in case. You know, you don't want them just to call, "How are you doing?" Well, you know, only in emergency. Watch for the ice cubes. The ice cubes, I said drink bottled water. Okay, you might take off from a foreign country. They don't purify their water as good as you should have it, and do that. One time I did the dumbest thing. I hooked my purse on the back of my chair. Now, how dumb is that? Somebody could just come along and, you know, take your purse, but I don't do that anymore. Okay, here's a tip I got from somebody in this room who happens to be going to Ireland tomorrow. Okay, she and her girlfriend were walking down the street, and ahead of them there's a gang of boys. What did they do? They crossed over the street and were with a bunch of other people. Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, the biggest thing is be aware. Be aware of your surroundings. I'm going to end this talk by a poem from Mark Twain, who traveled the world in the 1880s. And this is the advice he gives people. Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many people need it sorely on those accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime. Thank you.